lessons learned podcast for tonight, Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern. And we're going to be discussing E3 and all the things that were said, or mostly the things that were not said. We're going to ramble for an hour or so, and we're going to go from one idea to the next. Warning for anybody, we're going to be very critical of E3. So brace yourselves. And it's going to be basically mostly because, let's be honest, let's upfront and personal, E3 is, at least I think, a very expensive, not much ado about nothing. If you think about it.
And a really expensive commercial.
Or series of commercials for products that, for the most part, unless you're Bethesda or Nintendo, won't be available in a year or 2 or 3 or more.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy, that's gonna be a thing. So we're gonna talk about that. I think first and foremost we have to talk about EA, and I think the great example, which was officially EA started on Sunday, but EA Play was on Saturday. And I think that's exemplary of that aspect of it, that there wasn't much to talk about.
Yeah.
They had the sports games.
Of course.
They had Anthem.
Eh.
And is there anything else? Well, they announced it. They announced the Star Wars games.
Yeah, sort of. Well, it's more like they mentioned they had absolutely nothing to show about their new. They bought Respawn this year, and now they're working on a new Star Wars entry. But that's it. They didn't even have a logo or a title, or they might have had a title.
Yeah, they had a title about something Star Wars, the Falling. I think it's the
Jedi or something.
Star Wars Jedi, the Falling Order.
Yeah, and they didn't mention, oh yeah, we released Star Wars Battlefront 2, and we didn't get it right at launch, but look, DLC.
Yeah, the patching culture strikes again.
And then, of course, their biggest messed up apparently was announcing a mobile game of the Command and Conquer franchise.
Oh yeah, that didn't go so well. I mean, Command and Conquer has been well. See, that's a very interesting story, because Command and Conquer was one of the company that made Command and Conquer was one of those companies that got absorbed and shredded to bits by EA in the 1990s and into the 2000s. And essentially, Command and Conquer was at times sort of the premier RTS before before Warcraft, before Starcraft. There was Command and Conquer, and in fact, the company that made Command and Conquer. Let's check if I forget. Let me close this window because I have a bunch of stuff here that I shouldn't be dealing with. Command and Conquer. A lot of iterations, but it was originally Westwood Studios, which are technically still part of EA. They still are around. I guess they just revived Westwood Studios just so they could, say, oh, Command and Conquer. They were the ones who created Dune 2 and Dune 2000, which are considered to be the first real RTSs. And I played Dune 2000, and it was pretty cool. Back in the day, it even had FMVs and stuff like that included. A lot of cutscenes, talk about story and all that. And you could choose from 3 factions and had all the things about building factories and special units and all of that. And then Command and Conquer came out. Command and Conquer was pretty tough, by the way. I never finished the original Command and Conquer. Basically, Command and Conquer was G.I. Joe, with the G.I. Joe versus Cobra, but with the numbers file off. Then there was a Red Alert, which really got even sillier. But eventually, I don't say RTS died. It hasn't died. There's still RTS out there. And again, it went through the shrinkage. But in the 1990s and early 2000s, RTSs were big.
Yeah.
And so now we have Command and Conquer coming back on mobile.
Yeah. My husband is a big fan of the Command and Conquer series. He told me that EA unlisted that particular trailer because it got so many downvotes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he wasn't too happy either.
Well, okay. This one of the things is also that that RTSs are. I mean, there have been some RTSs on console, but I'm going to show you why PC rules. You can see that this is the reason.
Yeah.
It's all about the interface. Bandboxing. Oh, you can do shortcuts and all. Especially people who play StarCraft, they're crazy on the shortcuts. But the ability to bandbox units is essential to any RTS. That's how you do mixed units. Like, I want to take this infantry guy and these 3 tanks, and I want to send them here. You have to be able to do that. And you can do it with a keyboard. You can do it with a touchscreen. You can try to do it with a controller. Sort of. I mean, for Halo, for example, they have like a radio menu. The Halo RTSs that came out, Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2. But they're not. It's not. I suppose you can hook up a keyboard and mouse to your Xbox if you want to. I don't know if it's supported. You could do that all the way. I mean, multiple consoles have had that ability on and off for years, for decades. But again, it's not. You're not going to use it much for anything. But for people who love, say, oh, you're bringing back another famous RTS, oh, but it's going to be probably mobile, riddled with microtransactions. Well, you're going to have to literally pay for the upgrades for every unit.
Or have to wait like a day before you can make your next turn.
Yeah, or you want more Tiberian crystals, wait 8 hours, or pay us $1.50 for 200 or 2,000 Tiberian crystals. I mean, it's EA, it's a mobile market, it's microtransactions, and considering how EA has doubled down on microtransactions, especially now the cards thing, where basically you get a unit, but that unit at level 1 is different from a unit at level 15. So units have levels, and they go either through cards or just stacking levels. So, I mean, we've seen this in a lot of other games, mobile games. And, I can see why people were like, no. There was a big interview, I think, with GameStop. No, Game Informer. With one of the EA BioWare executives. And they definitely say that they're working on stuff.
Yeah.
And mostly focusing on Anthem. All hands on deck for Anthem.
And we know they're also working on Dragon Age 4. So
yeah, that BioWare is not in crisis and doesn't depend on Anthem's success. So maybe they're hedging their bets. Anthem won't be as successful as it is. And by the way, everything we saw about Anthem was what everybody suspected. It's a Destiny MMO light clone.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, with instead of having rocket bikes, you have jetpacks.
Yeah, you got like full mech suits or sort of mech suits. It looks okay. Like, I will give them that. Doesn't look bad. It looks okay, but it's not. It's. I watched someone who was a big BioWare fan, and she pretty much said like it's missing character. Like, there's no. What they presented doesn't have that element of BioWare. There's no character and there's no sense of a story. It's just like, oh, here's gameplay. It looks okay. It looks fine.
Yeah, which is kind of some people have problem with Andromeda. That Andromeda was kind of generic. It was okay. It had Mass Effect slapped on it. It could have been any sci-fi thing in some planet or other, right? It could have been that, right? Third-person shooter. I mean, this is very interesting because, of course, we both know, and the audience probably knows, as you know, when playing that trope, BioWare started doing other people's working with other people's. Well, they started with their own mech game and some others, but and that's one of the things they say. And it's like, well, we did Mass Effect, we did an iOS game, and we did that. It's like, yeah, because you're trying to get as much of the franchise as possible. So probably that's what they might bring, one form or another of Mass Effect, an iOS game, mobile game, or something like that.
They've pretty much expressed that we love Mass Effect, and we'll do something with it at some point, almost.
Yeah, but reminder to everybody out there that BioWare now is and has been for over a decade a division of EA, which means that if Electronic Arts doesn't want to do anything with Mass Effect, and they have a long history of sitting on franchises like Command and Conquer for decades, at least a decade or more, and then when it comes out, it's a mobile game. So my confidence on whatever it is they might spit out in Mass Effect when they're not doing anything else is, I would prefer actually Mass Effect to stay dead, to be honest.
Yeah, and of course, the biggest, I guess, thing that the fandom's kind of upset about with the news on Anthem is the announcement that there's not going to be any romances in it.
Yeah. Um.
So, I don't believe a game needs romances at all. Like, I'm playing a vampire right now, and the main character and like the one female lead all of a sudden have a romance after like 4 conversations and knowing each other for like 4 days, and it's like, okay, you guys have a thing for each other suddenly. Okay, fine. Like, it's crap. It's so forced and stuff.
Mhm.
So no, games don't need romances. The thing is, it's something, it's an element that's been a staple in BioWare's games, especially since they're still claiming that Anthem is supposed to be a story driven game. And it's like, you took your staple out. And their justification's fine. It's like, oh, you can hang out with friends, like be really good buds with a lot of these NPCs, and I'm sure they're great. I would imagine it's sort of like having Varric around or something.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people wanted to romance Varric, but I thought he was completely fine being a really cool friend that you
Yeah.
wish you could romance, but you don't because he's got his own little
Bianca.
love thing
Bianca.
going around.
Bianca. Yeah.
But
He loves that crossbow, I gotta say.
yeah, but honestly, to me, it's like I feel like it's because it's gonna be like there's a difference between everyone playing a single player game with romance options and everyone playing a multiplayer game that can romance those same NPCs in the same world. Even though it seems like the hub is pretty much the only thing that changes in your narrative and not anything else in the world.
I think you
So
have romances in SWTOR, but SWTOR is a very weird MMO which has mostly a single player campaign thing going that you can play with other people, I suppose.
So I don't know if they were just trying to avoid those awkwardness of that, or if they can't do open relationships right.
I think the thing is that for me, I would say okay, fine, because to me, I felt especially and again, I bring that. Let me just get a moment. The old bones. They're in a tiny little bag. We have to get rid of the big bag because that's we only have like dust and little pieces of Dragon Age 2. And during and since Dragon Age 2, my biggest criticism of romance is, aside that sometimes it's puppet sex and all that, which is just kind of fun thing, but not a big, really actually not a big deal. Is that often they're used to paper over the deficiencies of not only the story, Citadel, but also to paper over the problems with the game in general, right? Because they know they have a base of people that will always go to them because of romances, right? That's what they want. They want a game that has romances. That's that they see. They see Mass Effect as being first and foremost a dating sim, space dating sim, and this shooty spaceship war thing, Reapers, blah blah, whatever, right? And that's fine. I mean, that's what they like. My biggest worry is that this is ironically another nail in the coffin of BioWare because these have been the fans that have stuck with BioWare through thick and thin. People love Citadel. They give them a romance option, and they absolutely love Citadel. You told them that everybody lived, or people loved ones lived in the end of Mass Effect 3, the best ending ever. Andromeda had romances.
Really?
Yeah, that guy, that alien guy who probably has like 20 different genders in his own language. All of a sudden also comports to gender aspects of humanity so that a guy can buff him or buff by a guy. I don't know. just there because that's why the fans demanded it. So there you go, And so now Andromeda is the best game ever. It isn't, but So I think that's my problem. The problem is like it becomes it's not a narrative aspect. It's fan service. It's pure fan service, and fan service is nice. I always say fan service is like sprinkles on a donut. If the donut is good, the sprinkles are, they're great. If you're making a donut out of shit, there's no amount of sprinkles that is gonna make it taste great. Not gonna work.
I can agree with you there.
So basically, EA's opening, and I guess, and that's another thing, is going to talk about the sort of vacuous aspect of E3. It's very expensive, and they are opening there earlier. And of course, last week we talked about all the announcements about announcements, which we had the announcements. Then we had the Microsoft presentation. I think this is the weird thing about console makers, like, I guess Nintendo not so much because they have a lot of first party games. But and you go from Nintendo to Sony to Microsoft. Microsoft is a company that has the least first party games, although they announce they're buying new studios and all that. And even though Microsoft Games as a studio is gone, so okay, never mind. I don't know exactly how their branding is going. I guess it's all Microsoft. And they have Halo, of course. There's a new Halo coming out, because, of course. But Microsoft has the least amount of first-party games, so they're not announcing a new platform. So most of the time, they're kind of wasting their time. So what did they do? They brought Todd Howard from Bethesda to make announcements that boil down to announcements of stuff that he was going to announce later that day in his own conference.
Yep. And I think the saddest news is that last year the indie darling game Hell's Blade, made by Ninja Theory, strictly like here's a mid-tier mid-market game, AAA quality or AAA-ish quality, made with a low budget, bought out by Microsoft.
Yeah, which I don't know then what they're gonna expect they're gonna do with it. Exactly. I mean, Microsoft needs exclusives. Well, I suppose I think they looked at Sony's numbers, because the exclusives in Sony's they sell well for the platform, but they don't sell in the tens of millions, right? The Sony knows Nintendo is the only one that when they have a hit, they can actually sell 5, 10, 50 million copies, huge numbers, right? Sony knows that these are sort of, how can I call their exclusives? They are platform holders. They're pylons in which they can sync their and stabilize their platforms. Like, we have all these other third-party games, but on top of that, we have these things that we have here that nobody else has. So instead of being, this is what sells consoles first and foremost, and then you play everything else, it's sort of the opposite now, where it's like, on top of all the other cool games you can play on every other platform, we have these extras that you can't play anywhere else, right? Sort of turn upside down the way you used to be like, oh, this is like Halo originally was the system seller, right? But now it's, they move into, in background, right? Except for Nintendo, who's success, first party platform is working great for them, like Smash. But we'll talk about that a little later in the program. The thing I really like was Bethesda. It was a mixed bag. They're doing the kind of thing that at least they have 1 or 2 games, usually a mobile game, and one game that they announced that they're going to release this year. In this case, it's going to be Fallout 76. Good that it's going to be released this year. Bad that it's, at least for me as a Fallout fan, it's an online game, which is again an MMO. It's an MMO light. Let's be honest. That's what it is in the Fallout universe. They're not going so far as to making ESO, which was their own. It still is their online MMO, and in the Elder Scrolls world. But kind of halfway. I think we're seeing more. We're gonna see more. Also, Ubisoft announced a lot of those. Like Destiny 2 is coming out. Actually, no, Destiny 3 was supposed to be rumored, but that's going to come out. Sorry, The Division 2 and stuff like that, which Ubisoft just announced more stuff, but we'll get to Ubisoft in a moment. I think that was Ubisoft was Ubisoft was on Monday, so we're gonna get to them in a moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a mixed bag, right? I think Bethesda's also taking cues from other people. So, for example, the whole Devolver deal, they made the whole video about, which is pretty funny actually, with having now the very special edition of Skyrim on
Yep.
Alexa, and following what they're doing. Yes, if you have Alexa, you can get, which essentially would be a narrated version of Skyrim. It actually
Yeah.
exists, which is kind of weird. As a promotional thing, it's brilliant, right? But it's just kind of random things like, oh, you this is happening. Okay, you respond. It's cool as a party trick, right, I guess.
Yeah. Nah. It's
I
kind
think
of
it works more like a joke, I guess.
yeah.
But at the
Like
same time, I think it's also specifically Todd Howard sort of deflecting, Bethesda deflecting from a little bit like, well, we're not really gonna deal with these issues, like the fact that new fall game won't be able to be modded because if it's always online and it has no NPCs, there's no way you can mod that. So it's like, okay, I may try it out. In fact, I think the beta is out. You can play the beta if you order the game, which kind of feeds into that, of course. So I would say Bethesda, they're halfway decent.
Yeah, and then of course, I always gave them the past couple of years. I think they've been really good about announcing games that that are pretty much right around the corner. They'll be released in a few days or a few months from now, a few weeks from now, or available right now. And then they kind of messed it up at the end with their announcement of the Elder Scrolls 6, or at least their very, very, very teaser trailer that's just essentially a logo with some
but
landscape.
I think again it was one of that sort of deflection strategy. I think it actually worked for them because I got a goosebump when I heard the Elder Scrolls theme. Right, people think it's the Skyrim theme, but Skyrim is the first time that it's Skyrim has their version of that theme. Right, one could argue that it's the Elder Scrolls games is the theme of the entire continent, or at least of the Empire, because every region has its own thing. I think the coolest so far is the being Skyrim version because the one it's fully voiced, has actually a song in it, people singing it. But I think it's cool because I think it's designed again to deflect. Like, oh, you're not seeing another Fallout game, blah blah blah, And they said it was going to be a single player. In other words, their new Skyrim game is going to be all the things, or supposed to be all the things that people expected in Fallout. But it's like, well, we're not going to give you that Fallout because we already have Fallout 4 out there, but we're going to give you Skyrim, which are the things you said about, online they didn't want, so we're listening to you. So deflect. That's what it was, basically. It's like, it was that thing, I was like, to the fans, like, we're listening to you. We're listening to you.
I'm just kind of waiting to see, I'll give, the Fallout 76 the benefit of the doubt and see if it's any good. I'm not going to buy it, but I'm willing to be open about it.
Yeah.
But that comes from someone who's never played the original Fallout games.
Yeah, I played. I didn't play Tactics, but I played 1, 2, 3, New Vegas, started 4. So there's that. Square Enix came next. What can we say about Square Enix? Really?
They
a lot of remakes, continuations.
They're finally a release date for Kingdom Hearts 3.
Which is the 59th game in the Kingdom Hearts system.
Yeah. They announced another Don't Not Life is Strange game, but it's not Life is Strange, but set in the same universe.
Yeah, something
which
like
I'm
that.
interested in, but yeah.
More stuff about Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 14. which of course their MMO, which has done very well for them. But Final Fantasy VII is they're still working on it.
Something I kind of found peculiar is that I think last month Square Enix announced that they weren't going to they stopped Go their Go division, which is like they made sort of premium mobile games.
Mm-hmm.
They made like a Lara Croft one, a Deus Ex one, a Hitman one, and because I think they cited that competition for these like premium games that you just pay once is kind of it's hard because of all these the free microtransaction ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of heard a lot about micro or mobile games from other companies though, which I'm kind of like, so you probably did something wrong with that, because Bethesda had their Elder Scrolls one, their card, and then you got the Command and Conquer, but then also EA was talking about something about, we're going to make it to, at some point, we're hoping to make it to where you can stream any game from any kind of device, essentially like a cell phone, and play like fully console dedicated games on cell phones.
Well, I guess it's the free it's the access. It's how do you get there? I think that the problem with them was that they were charging for these games, and mostly in the mobile market, if you pay more than say $5 for a game, that seems to be too expensive, right? You either don't pay anything most of the time, or you pay like $1 or $2, right? That's when microtransactions are so big in that space, because if you want to recoup your money and you want to make money, that's the easiest and most straightforward way to do it. There's an Elder Scrolls, and again, that's another because there's different strategies. Bethesda puts their mobile games as a sort of filler. The way they do it is, hey, we're giving you stuff, right? When Fallout 4 was going to come out 2 years ago, which they announced that was coming out that fall, they also had right then and there, it's like, right now you can go and get this free Fallout Shelter, it was, mobile game, and people played it, and they had fun, and it was free, and that's it. It's like for them, it's like, oh, this is a holdover thing you can have until we get you the real stuff. Like, we're thinking about you. Here's a little thing. Enjoy.
Yeah, which is also odd because they announced that game is coming to like consoles too. So you're porting a mobile game to a console.
I mean, I guess it's a matter. Again, it's I think their idea, and also a card game as well. They're doing a CCG, a collectible card game. It's a matter of, here's a product that keeps people. It's, to them, it's the way they do hype, because without it. And we're going to make sure we talk about that as well. If you have weeks, months, and years between announcements, how do you keep the hype going? Where you literally give somebody something in their phone when they're bored, they go and they play like 5 minutes of Fallout or Elder Scrolls. Like, oh yeah, by the way, Elder Scrolls is still a thing. When it comes out, it's a way of reminding people about that thing. And other places like of course EA, they just want to make as much money as possible. So it's all about microtransactions. So they're gonna give stuff free, and I think they have one of the largest mobile game divisions in the AAA industry. Because they bought out, they bought a couple of companies that were pretty big, and so yeah, they're gonna use them. Otherwise, it's a complete waste. But Square Enix didn't do much. I don't think there's anything that really jumped to my mind about Square Enix and say, oh yeah, Square Enix.
No, that's pretty much the Kingdom Hearts 3 thing. And I think they said that if you bought Kingdom Hearts 3, you get like pretty much all the other games released or something like that. Which I guess is a good deal. Like,
yeah,
$60 for essentially
the entire collection,
58 games.
Yeah, so especially in a lot of games that might not be released on that platform, because one of the things about all those games is some games were released on mobile platforms, other were released on this console, and very few of them are on PC as well. So if this game comes to PC, then all those PC gamers are going to get all those games. Also the upgraded graphics, which actually seen pictures comparing this is a trailer, of course, but comparing the trailer to the original Disney movies, some of these characters, like the CGI stuff, and sometimes it looks better. Of course, again, this is a trailer.
Yeah.
Um, Following that, we had Ubisoft, and apparently Ubisoft's message this year is, we do what BioWare don't.
uh,
Because Assassin's Creed has
so,
romances.
oh, so they do. They have fully fledged romances then.
And they're gonna have any gender.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know if every NPC is romanceable by any gender, or will the? I think that's how they're going. They're going the Fallout shotgun thing where we're not gonna flag gender.
Oh,
I suppose
they're gonna be player sexual.
Yeah, and basically they put the example of one, because again, two heroes. They're going with the two male female hero, and Cassandra with a K because she's Greek. Having doing an approach to a female character. And I think the example I saw was, again, with dialogue options, because this is the first time that you have dialogue options. So they're getting more RPG-ish, I suppose. That's where they're going with this. Is, oh, I want to have a romance with this female character, which has a relationship with another character who's going to be upset about this. So you can either pass it off as a one-night stand thing or really pursue it. Right, and this other person, and this other person gonna be upset, and you're gonna deal with that, right? Maybe even kill them or something. I don't know. This is ancient Greece after all. Very passionate.
And I guess they're more open.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, and I mean, if you're gonna go for historical accuracy, this is ancient Greece, and we're talking about Spartans. Chad, just read a little bit about Spartan history. You realize it is very, very gay. So gay, in fact, that if you ever been afeared about the government, mandated homosexuality, you're looking at the Spartans, because literally that's what they did. Because they thought men were superior and men were supposed to, have this camaraderie in combat. So, well, if somebody's gonna stick a spear in you, might as well be your boyfriend in the phalanx. I mean, it worked for them, I suppose. Of course, it also had tons of misogyny and sexual abuse and, other aspects, which has nothing to do with being gay, of course. Let's make that absolutely abundantly clear. But they're also part of that system as well. How much is Assassin's Creed going to touch upon that?
And none.
Let's hope it is none, in a sense that even the word can be problematic. And so we go with that. But that's the thing. It was like, I seen memes were like, oh, friendship ended with BioWare. Now friendship started with Ubisoft. I was like, okay, that's an old meme. We brought that one back. But again, my fear is not that there's boys touching each other, or girls touching each other, or boys touching girls touching boys while touching girls. I mean, I don't care, because there's a bigger world than me. The universe doesn't revolve around me or my taste, but rather that they're going to use this again to sort of paper over basically the same thing that we've been doing for like now close to a decade, which is essentially tired gameplay that they haven't really modified in any way. Although one could ask you that the dialogue option are also gameplay, so they're expanding in that direction. Good for them. But might try to paper over other weaknesses of the story or maybe the games. Like, well, it's the same Assassin's Creed you've been playing for like 20 years, but hey, kissing. Kissy kissy, right?
Oh yeah, and they finally figured out how to animate women, I guess.
Yeah.
To playable characters.
Talking about animating women and same-sex relationships, The Last of Us 2. Which, mind you, the scene I seen in the trailer, and if it could be, that quality, actually is pretty well animated. Like, there's a kiss sequence, like, they even did the whole, like, the nose touching and all that, and, like, of course, that was motion captured. The actress, one of the actresses, is also on Critical Role, and she's replaying Well, she's not the face of the character. They've had somebody else be the face of the character, but she did the motion capture and all that. And in that sense, I think it is pushing the envelope. And it's gonna be centered on Ellie, and now I think she's gonna be 20 in this game. And we don't have a lot of details of it. A lot of people sort of piecing together from the trailers and all that, and that's the focus of that. Again, there were a lot of people like, "Oh my god, girls kissing, ew." I'm like, dude, you weren't paying attention to the games in the first place, were you? Sex has been going for a while, right?
Yeah, they didn't play that DLC.
Yeah, I know. Or we're connected to the internet in the last 5 years or so, I guess. It's like, it's a thing. But yeah, that's happening. And I wish that I haven't played the original Last of Us because that was a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah, I started it and I couldn't. I just kind of stopped playing it because it's sort of like a stealthy actiony game, and I just really couldn't get into it. I might try picking it up again.
Yeah. If I do get my hands on an old PlayStation, something like that, recycled, I may.
Or if you get it, they remastered it for the PlayStation 4, so
Yeah. Probably gonna get one of these. Oh, talk about now. We're talking about PlayStation again. The rumors are of a new generation, both for Sony and now Microsoft for 2020. So those rumors have sort of resurfaced again in this E3 because kind of how things were kind of thin on the ground, and they really want to talk really about new hardware. We didn't see anything. Well, Sony did a little bit of VR. Microsoft didn't touch VR, as far as I know. In fact, VR. One of the things about this.
There was a few mentions of VR, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Didn't Elijah Wood come out for one of them and talked about a game he was working on that was VR?
Yeah, but I think that's a game that he's been associated with for last
Like
2 or 3 years now. So nothing really new there. So VR, which was big and all, enhanced reality and all that, that has fallen by the wayside, pretty much.
Sort of. At least I'm wondering if it'll have a longer lifespan than the Vita.
Yeah, I mean, again, and we discussed it in our VR show. It's cost. I mean, a brand new game costs $60. A console still costs you about. I think now you can get them for about $300, maybe $200 if you're lucky. If you get an older console version of the console,
it's $60 for the webcam and $100 for the two Move controllers that used to cost like $20 the week before the thing came out because they're recycled PlayStation 3 Move controllers.
Yeah, and then of course the cost for the glasses themselves, which cost you another $300. So now they can be even find them more expensive than a console on sale. Which, I mean, that's always going to be the thing with VR. I think I heard of a couple people that love VR, and they're like, "Oh, VR is the best." And yeah, but if you can pluck down the money for it, yes. But most people are not going to spend as much money or more money on what essentially is a peripheral for a console or a PC. It's just a little bit too much. And we haven't really seen any one game that has. I think a lot of games that tested the waters of VR, but I never really seen a game that's like, boom, this is the
System
game.
Seller.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, also another game that got announced essentially was Doom 2. Hell on Earth. I'll certainly be playing that one because I enjoy the hell out of the new Doom. Don't know if I'm probably gonna play it when it comes out though, because it's gonna be pretty expensive. But I enjoy the hell out of the original Doom. Oh, and also going back, another Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein 3, with the children of the main hero, two twin girls, and they're gonna be in the 1980s. So they're gonna fighting Nazis in the 80s in America or the world. We don't know. I think there's aspect in America, but could be in some other places as well. So we'll see. Yeah, that's Bethesda. I think Bethesda, again, going back, did a fairly good job at what they were doing, half and half. But I think for what I saw, I think if we're gonna name a winner, and naming a winner of E3, Okay, let's call it what it is. Pretty pedantic, but that's,
Yeah.
I think it's Nintendo. With the Nintendo Direct, and the reason for it is that they're the ones who had the most games. They focus on games, 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 games. Although most of it was Smash Brothers. They spent like good 15 minutes on Smash Brothers. But they're the ones who announced most of the games that were releasing either already now while they were talking about it, while Reggie Mifune was talking about it. It's like, oh, by the way, this thing is available now, or will be available this year, with a few titles next year, as well as a host of ports and stuff like that were bringing like Dark Souls and other things into the machine. I think Stardew Valley on the Switch, stuff like that. And also, they were the ones, like I mentioned before with the show started, we were talking about this. Super Mario Brother party's coming out, and they're doing a thing where they've been doing this for a while now and with different platforms, but it really shows the Nintendo's thinking that the Switch is really a combination of the two things. It's a combination of a regular console and a portable machine, that you can take multiple Switches and link them together and like create like different maps and stuff like that. They were doing a demonstration where in the video, it's pre-recorded trailer, where there were 3 Switches and in a top-down kind of version of a combat, that old Atari 2600, but with Mario Brothers and tanks, and depending on how you put them, you could go different places, so the map would change, or the sections of it. Imagine if I don't know, could you link like 15 or 20 or 30? I don't know how many Switches you can connect, right?
4 players maybe.
Yeah,
We had 4 players with a Switch each.
I suppose you could do that. I think that was what they were going for. Also, new Splatoon and all that. And I think it's very interesting. It's one of the few companies that really is doing something new with hardware, without talking about VR, without going to these. Let's be honest, a bit of a flight of fancy, right? Which is really what VR and 3D before that and all that have sort of promised. Like, oh, we're promising great things. Nintendo went the practical route. No mention I saw of the Labo though, so I think that's a thing that came and went. We'll see this Christmas if they released early this year, so I doubt this will be a big, hot toy this Christmas. But it's just one of the things. So Nintendo came in. Well, Nintendo, Devolver Digital, and I'll tell you, they were the last ones. Officially, Devolver Digital is not part of E3, but everybody watches it. We also were talking about this before the show. Chapman, just you were the one who said, "Oh, you got to look at this." I'd like to hear your take on it first before.
So it is. It's actually kind of interesting because they did. It was they somehow managed to top themselves, because if you saw the first one, you saw that they were very over the top. It was a very cynical take on the gaming industry as a whole, because the theme of that first one was the unethical business practices of tomorrow today.
Mm-hmm.
This time they didn't have like a general theme, but they also they were like very mean-spirited in a almost like in a satire way with the gaming industry.
Mm-hmm.
There was a jab at announcing a battle royale game,
Mm-hmm.
which they didn't actually have a battle royale game. Well, actually they do have one. That they responded to criticism about their first conference. There was another jab at how people are pretty much willing to. If people complain about loot boxes, and yet they keep putting them out. They keep putting them out because people dump their money into it. Then there was selling essentially consoles with set amount of games that you've already paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And spend money on. And then they also made fun of going back to loot boxes. Also, they kind of combine loot boxes with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah,
and it was just so over the top and mean spirited, and not, and I say mean spirited because it's intentionally mean spirited in a humorous way
Mm-hmm.
that you couldn't really ever take it seriously. And there's more prosthetics and blood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I would say it's more biting humor. Maybe that's what you
Hmm.
were going for, right? More of
Yes.
an edge. I think the problem with that, I mean, I think it serves the purpose. We said this before we were going to program. It serves as a decompression
Hmm.
after the sort of the hype, because that's what E3 is all about. It's about hyping, getting you as hype as possible, excited as possible, and then it's like, okay, here, let's get by doing this sort of absurdist uh, comedy and routine, it's a good way of sort of like, okay, let's go back to
Ta-
reality. Yeah,
Tapering the hype. I mean,
yeah.
they're also trying to, because they do announce actual games that they're
Hmm.
publishing
Yeah.
during this. So they are kind of trying to, they make fun of the hype, and they're also kind of trying to run on the hype
Hmm.
for the games. There's one game in particular that I've never heard of before. Apparently, it's a it's essentially an HD version of an old FromSoft game called Metal Wolf Chaos.
Oh yes.
It
Oh boy.
it was only ever released on Xbox and in Japan only,
Hmm.
and they're gonna release it to all audiences in an HD format. I'm like, oh my god, what the hell is this game? It looks so over the
Okay.
top.
Because it's perfect for Devolver Digital. Metal Wolf Chaos. That's the name. It's and let's talk about politics for a second. It is a game where you play as the president of the United States. There was a coup d'état in the United States. The vice president takes over, becomes the president, kicks off the president. The president gets into a giant mecha suit to and fights his way across America in order to get America back for himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his lines, well, 2 years ago, his lines were over the top. Let's put it that way. And now, well, not so much.
They're
But
scary.
so it became sort of a cult classic, especially one of those things where it's like, oh, it's exclusive for Japan, but we never get these games, and I wish we got them. So a lot of people sort of have clones of the games, or adapted it, or maybe, rigged their Xboxes for it, that sort of thing, to play regional lock games. So that's how Way got into America and all that. But now that it's being done by Devolver, it's like, oh, Metal Wolf Chaos is coming to America finally. Oh, great! And it's craziness. It's very meme. It's we launched a lot of memes when it came out, or at least people eventually when it got into the internet. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're selling their own stuff.
Yeah.
I think the thing about it is that it kind of comes, it might come out as being trite, and it's like, okay, eventually you can't top yourselves in this, right?
Yeah.
Eventually it's like, we get it, the joke.
And that's the thing too, because the first one is self-contained and just kind of ends, and then this one they kind of they sort of do callbacks, or at least they have quick flashes of their first one to just kind of remind you, oh yeah, this is who this person is. They were in the first one.
Yeah.
Not so much that they repeat their jokes, as in terms of they kind of tried to call back a little to it, and this time they also set up for the next one,
Yeah.
and a RoboCop parody.
Of all things.
Yeah. And there's actually another another smaller conference that probably slipped under a lot of people's radar. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure why they needed a conference. I guess just to join the party. And that was Limited Run Games had their own conference during E3. Yeah, this is, if for anyone who doesn't know what Limited Run Games is a it's essentially, I'm not sure what you would call them. They're a company essentially that tries to make physical copies or physical versions of indie games on different platforms. So if there's a lot of these indie games only get released on the digital market, like Steam or PlayStation, the PlayStation Store, or the Nintendo Store. they will make physical working copies of these games for certain platforms. It's usually just PlayStation and Nintendo.
Mm.
And they have theirs was it was incredibly low budget and intentionally terrible, but at the same time I couldn't tell if that was also part of their limitations, because they try to go for, I would call it a limited style,
Mm.
that they were in this poorly rendered uh conference room, or what you call auditorium,
Mm-hmm.
with these flat static non-moving just images of people, like you would see in really like PlayStation 2 games. If you ever looked
Yeah.
at a crowd
Yeah.
in racing games, that's exactly what they look like.
Mm.
And they were green screened really terribly. They moved really terribly, and they looked like they were made intentionally to look flat instead of actually being there.
Mm-hmm.
And they just announced games that had already been released but are actually getting physical copies now. That's pretty much all they did. Which
Yeah.
which was the only good part I found about it, because it really didn't need a conference. It did let us know of certain games that we didn't know existed and were actually interested in.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, and I think we're close to the bottom of the hour here. We are at the bottom of the hour. The biggest criticism I have of any E3 and 2018 is really no exception. And I think going back to Bethesda, their sort of announcement of the next Elder Scrolls games is that, and I think by contrast, the amount of money spent on E3 to create the hype, and then the amount of money you need to sustain that hype for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in these games that are some of these. I mean, I think they're going closer to 2 years in announcements, depending on Yeah, they if you announce last year to this year, so the teasers come a year, 1 year. Then the official announcement come the year after in the other E3. So that was 2 E3s spent on one game. And then that game is going to be released the year after that. Although I did see a lot of games being released on February. Instead, we announced about releasing in February as opposed to November, which was interesting, except for the Battlefields and all that. Clearly, they're going to come out in November. So I think a lot of people are pushing, earlier in the year, perhaps because, they want to sort of make it feel like the games are coming out more sooner, and because they don't want to spend as much money, keeping the hype going. But that's 12 months. 6 months. We're in June, so let's be generous and say 6 months of the year, and then 2 more. So it's 12, 14, between 14 months to 18 months if it's November. So you're creating a hype machine that you have to create it and maintain it for at least 18 months or more.
Mm-hmm.
And in case of games like the Final Fantasy VII Remake and others, you keep announcing them and announcing them and announcing them.
And then eventually having to scrap everything and start over again.
Yeah. You're creating your own vaporware kind of thing. And yes, I mean, they don't announce just one game and that's it. So the entire thing is not just for one game. But for example, Microsoft stuff, most of it was a repeat of either stuff that came before, like EA stuff, or was it announcement for what was coming down the line with, say, Bethesda. Literally had Todd Howard talking about games that he was going to talk about in his own conference, a couple of hours later. So you spend a gigantic amount of money, and then you go, oh, well, games are too expensive, and that's why we have to have microtransactions and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, it's like the drug companies. Like, oh, yes, we're gonna have advertising for all these drugs that require your doctor to,
prescribe to you and diagnose you, make sure you have this disease that's really, really rare.
And has a bunch of side effects and actually can do more harm than the actual disease that you have. You could probably treat with diet and exercise and some other methods. or cheaper pill, a generic. It's kind of, but they spend millions, billions of dollars, and I was like, well, why are medicines so expensive? Yeah, because you're spending a lot of money in advertising. Yes, getting to know people, getting people to know about your products is important. But if you say Star Wars, people are gonna know. You say Final Fantasy, people are gonna know. People already are cued in on the next Assassin's Creed, next Fallout, the next everything. Maybe, in fact, there was a time where E3 got canceled by about 3 years because it was too expensive. And then when they came back, they came bigger than ever. There's also, in fact, the hype, right? People get so excited. I don't want to be, and I'm gonna be. I don't want to be, but I'm gonna be. I don't want to be Debbie Downer here. Um, Mostly because my name is Rafael, but still, it's you gotta, you gotta sort of, and I think this is what they've always did. You're just kind of doing in a way. It's like you gotta temper your expectations. Yes, it's okay to be excited about the new game and all that, but don't let the thing overwhelm you and carry over, because then when the game comes out, it's like, oh yeah, it has all this stuff that. And I think people are wising up. Like, for example, a lot of stuff, the Fall 76, like, well, we're not getting a bunch of stuff that we're getting here. Or Anthem is not giving us romances, right? I think people are wising up and sort of really dissecting what E3 is offering. But ultimately, they're not going deep enough, because if you think about it, even I got excited about Cyberpunk 2077.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit it, because I want to play it, because I'm a fan of like I said, the tabletop RPG from a long time. But it is still an announcement of a game that they literally said, we're sorry, we spent like 6-7 years working on this, and we teased it, and now we're teasing it again, but we're really working on it. E3 is really shallow. Sometimes, and most of the people that watches are never going to get a chance to play these games anyway. I mean, you're not going to, yeah, the press is probably going to get some kind of demo, stuff like that. But we know even those demos, those vertical slices, are kind of bullshit.
Yeah, they're not representative of the final product.
Yeah, because it can be for a host of reasons. We talked about this before, and we continue to talk about. And the vertical slices and the demos, and and a lot of those trailers look great, and then you look at the real game, and it's somewhat downgraded because maybe you want parity with consoles or whatever. Yeah, I think right now I'm watching more E3 because we're talking about it. We're talking about it because it's the news, rather than, but news is not really substantive, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to that Macintosh, comment tweet is like, yeah, you're commenting about something. Not only are you kind of being a Debbie Downer with some, but also we are all talking about stuff that most of the stuff doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. If it didn't get announced, like it was released right then and there, or in a few months, less than 6 months or less, it doesn't exist. It just doesn't. There's nothing really there. There's a lot of promises, a lot of expectation, but there's nothing there. And I think that's always the note you have to start and close E3 with, or any of these major things. And also, by the way, we're going to see more of this in the PAXs and other things. This is going to be rolling down the hill from here, especially when November comes around and February comes around. All the big things.
Gotta release, get all this releases out for the holiday season.
Yeah. So that would be almost always E3 whatever. In this case was E3 2018. Should always have an asterisk. E3 year asterisk. That's probably the only way you can really go through the madness without getting swept away by the hype. Unnecessarily so. I mean, if the favorite game that you wanted to you were looking at, and you're happy about it, that's awesome. But a little bit of salt and a couple of teaspoons of salt, a pinch of salt, and always make the thing taste a little bit better, and accept when it comes out of the line. So there's habits. I think that's our coverage of E3, and everything we have to say. Yeah,
coverage, commentary, a little bit of both.
And we hope you enjoyed our show for tonight. As always, Chapelman, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chopamon pretty much anywhere. I'm at Chopamon at YouTube, and I am Chopamon_Aragon on Twitter and on Twitch.
Yeah, and you can find me here, of course, in the Lessons Learned 1 channel, We're six still. We were five, but then now we're back to six. 6 followers away from hitting in the next step on the road to affiliate. So if you like the podcast, you like what we're doing, follow, comment, join the chat. The more the merrier. I'd like to thank everybody, by the way, who's been very grateful and very helpful on my noob run of Dark Souls Remasters, which I'm still doing this week. We're doing it in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll actually get to somewhere, because today I got cursed and it was a bit of a mess. So thank you. And of course, you can check out my YouTube channel also on the Lessons Learned and also on Twitter. So thank you all for coming. And as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye.
Good night.